So what is at the top for roguelikes? What do I think is one of the best roguelikes? Well, it is an older one, but it's one of the best ones. That is Enter the Gungeon. So why is Enter the Gungeon one of the best roguelikes? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but for a start, one of the biggest is the feeling of the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell combined with a roguelike, and both parts make it exciting. The bullet hell part makes it amazing, having to look everywhere, and the roguelike part, meaning that if you mess up, you gotta start again, which is terrifying and exciting. Another reason the Gungeon is so exciting is because it's more skill than luck, and sure, you can get the most powerful loadout that would allow you to steamroll through the Gungeon, but even if you get the worst stuff, you can still get through the Gungeon if you got enough skill. Something else about the Gungeon is that most runs don't feel the same. There are so many items and so many guns in the Gungeon that they all feel like they have something to give. Let's get to the big part, which is the guns, each one feeling different from each other, from the starting guns not giving up to the big guns that can absolutely destroy some bosses. They all feel different, and they all have some thought into them, and they all are unique in their own ways, each gun having their own little thing that separates them from the rest, from the guns that shoot turtle shells to the big beam lasers. Now, some of the guns are better than other guns, but all the guns are fun to use. Some guns are just wild, and some guns are just death rays. And you can use all the guns you find during a run because there's no limit to how many guns you can hold, but when the run is over, you lose all the guns you had during that run. Now let's get to the next important thing, which is the items, and these are where the Gungeon can get really insane. And there are some items that can have a huge impact on the Gungeon. There are two types of items. There are the passive items that just work in the background, and there are active items that have to be activated, and just like the guns, they are all unique in their own ways. There are many things that items can do in the Gungeon, from stopping time to making you invincible. And you don't get to choose what guns or items. That is all left up to chance, from the chests you get in the chambers of the Gungeon to the hidden rooms in the walls. There are a lot of places to get things. And guns and items can work together with synergies that change both the gun and the item and make them better and more useful. And most guns and items have synergies that can happen. And even without a synergy, an item can help a gun in a massive way, like increasing how hard the bullets hit or the size of the bullets, and some synergies can allow two guns to work together and become more powerful. Now, the Gungeon would not be as good as it is without the bosses, and in my opinion, there are some bosses better than others, but they are all really fun to go up against, and they're all unique with their own movesets, their own abilities, and they're all just different to look at. The Gungeon has so many unique things to it, from different challenges, to different shops to find, to different people to meet within the Gungeon walls. It is always fun to go in. There are so many secrets in the Gungeon, it is always a wonder to explore and mow through. There are entire secret rooms that can change a run and take it to new heights, and there are just some for an extra challenge, and each gun has to be unlocked by doing something and exploring the Gungeon. Everything in the Gungeon has detail to it, from the rooms to the guns to the bosses, and they all look great. There are things in the Gungeon that can affect a whole run, and there are some that can affect it more than others. The Gungeon has a lot of risk and reward, some being little while some being huge, and you don't know what you're going to get from the Gungeon. There are things like Winchester's game, where depending on how well you do gives you a better item or gun, and there are some things like not getting hit in boss fights, which gives a master round, which gives an extra heart when beating the boss without getting hit, and this happens with most of the bosses in the Gungeon, so you are rewarded for doing better in the Gungeon. The Gungeon is a lot of fun just to jump into and run through it, from huge amounts of guns to huge amounts of items, and they are all different. The Gungeon is just amazing, and there's a ton of things to do, go, and see around. So if you did enjoy this, please feel free to like and subscribe because it really helps out. Thank you a lot for watching and have a good one.